You're the Candace Owens of ESPN. Is what.
Wait, what? Where'd you read that?
I forget where I read it, but it made me laugh.
Wow. I respect the hell out of Candace Owens.
Remember ESPN's Sage Steele?
I think it's comical. I think that if Colin Kaepernick, I just think he would still be on the Niners if he were that good.
A person who loves spewing right-wing talking points.
If he were that good, someone would have picked him up.
He wasn't fired for what he did. He was fired because he's not good enough to be a starter in the NFL.
In your view, Mr. President, should Colin Kaepernick get an opportunity to play in the NFL?
Only if he's good enough.
See what I mean?
What happens when you fill out your census? I'm like, well, I don't know when the last time I filled out my census was, but if they make you choose a race, she's like, what are you gonna put? I go, well, both. She's like, well, you can't. She goes, well, what if Barack Obama chose black and he's biracial? I'm like, well, congratulations to the president. That's his thing. I go, I think that's fascinating considering his black dad was nowhere to be found, but his white mom and grandma raised him. But hey, you do you.
Carrie Champion, a former co-worker of hers and a person who looked up to Steele, spoke on it.
I wonder what you felt when you heard Sage Steele saying that.
A lot of people, myself included, before I even started working at ESPN, Sage was considered a role model in a lot of ways for a lot of young brown girls. My reaction was simply disappointed because, first of all, it implied so many things that were hurtful, and it also shows that there was just a lack of unawareness on her part.
All of her comments that she had made thus far, because it was quite the week, because actually it started with her comparing the children that had been, the children that were either infected by coronavirus or had been killed by the virus to the children in Chicago. Because, you know, that's the thing to do.
As did another ex-coworker, Jamil Hill, pointing out Steele's illogical faults. Now, you likely saw in a very attention-grabbing headline put out by Steele and her team that she's suing ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. She claims part of the reason is because of what she said on her own free will in a podcast with former Bears quarterback Jay Cutler.
Mandate it is sick. And it's scary to me in many ways. You know what? You want to see what my face looked like when I had to do it? The mandate is what I really have an issue with. But I do know for me personally, I feel like defeated, and it hurt. And I'm tough, but like I think she like put it in the muscle and was like,
You're getting
maybe
this
she
shot.
thought I was Candace Owens. I don't know.
So she's against a private company issuing a vaccine mandate and joked those giving her the jab stabbed her because they thought she was an alt-right troll. Got it. According to her lawsuit, after Miss Steele's remarks drew criticism in the press and on social media, ESPN forced her to issue an apology and temporarily benched her. The suit was served in Connecticut, where the network is based. They add, ESPN also retaliated by taking away prime assignments and failing to stop bullying and harassment by Miss Steele's colleagues, the suit alleges. First, Sage is likely referring to a special ESPN put on in the summer of 2020, as the George Floyd protests continued and the country faced a racial reckoning, or at least we thought it did, until conservatives held up legislation and wrote blank checks to police departments.
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
The country, at least at the time, felt like progress was going to be made. Steele, a person who attacks black players that took a knee to protest systemic racism and police brutality, a person who said, and I quote, "People come to us for their sports," and that I think we leave social and political issues to the news networks, a modern-day classic "we should stick to sports and only sports" mantra. Steele, the kind of person who publicly blames protesters for holding up her day when the 45th president issues the Muslim ban. Sage Steele, the kind of person who supports Larry Elder, a man who has said,
"Would you have voted in favor or against the civil rights legislation of 1964? Yes, I would have voted against it."
Could you just answer my question? George Zimmerman like he's some sort of criminal. He's not a criminal. He's George a guy Zimmerman who cares about his neighborhood. He's a neighborhood watch guy. Don't you want people who are proactive?
Yeah, that guy, Larry Elder, a man who said on a show with none other than Candace Owens that slave owners deserve reparations for lost property after the Civil War. This is who Steele cheers on. Thus, when ESPN put on a special with a bevy of black hosts, Steele, knowing her history, did not participate. Many viewers would likely see right through it and would be deemed a bad look by the company. Steele, ever the one to shift blame, is fighting it now in her lawsuit. For the record, an ESPN spokesman denied that Steele wasn't invited because of a campaign by colleagues to undermine her or that her views played any role in Mr. Fountain's decisions, wrote the Wall Street Journal. What likely occurred was Steele caught wind and played victim to the higher-ups. Back to her lawsuit, the complaint says ESPN's handling of Ms. Steele's situation was an example of selective enforcement of a network policy that bars news personnel from taking positions on political or social issues. ESPN has violated Connecticut law and Steele's rights to free speech based upon a faulty understanding of her comments and a non-existent, unenforced workplace policy that serves as nothing more than pretext, according to the suit, which seeks unspecified damages. It should be noted, her claims of being sidelined are not well-founded. Steele, a veteran of the network, has continued to be a key figure in the company's ranks, anchoring the noon SportsCenter broadcast every time she steps into the Bristol offices. One point I'd love to harken back on, though, is her argument of the company failing to stop bullying and harassment.
I do think as women, we need to be responsible as well. It isn't just on players and athletes and coaches to act a certain way. I mean, I've had talks with young women who would come in and they'd intern with me, with our channel, or just other women who reach out to me now. And I've said to a couple of them, they're like, well, would you look at my tape? Would you do this? And I've said, listen, I would love to, but the way that you present yourself, it's not something I want to be associated with.
Yeah.
So when you dress like that,
yeah.
I'm not saying you deserve the gross comments, but you know what you're doing when you're putting that outfit on too.
Yeah. Pretty horrible. And it shows how she truly feels about her coworkers. Another ESPN employee, Sarah Spain, wrote, just a reminder to women journalists and women everywhere that what you wear should have no effect on whether or not you're safe at work. Your clothes aren't harassing you. Human beings are. Don't let anyone tell you you're at fault for your own victimization.
Here is the thing. She clearly has an issue with women, but I'll say this, and it may be controversial. Her statements, while being anti-Black or making it seem as if she doesn't want to be associated with Black people because they've been mean to her or whatever she has said in the past.
What Champion is referring to here is a quote Steele put out on her own accord that reads as follows. The worst racism that I have received, and I mean thousands and thousands over the years, is from Black people. We continue with Champion's comments.
Now she's anti-woman, and that's just a no-no. How do you tell a young girl you don't like the way she's dressed, so I don't want to mentor you or look at your tape? That's the absolute opposite of what anyone wants to hear. This business, especially in sports, which you even know what you do, this business in particular, which is a male-dominated business, really doesn't lend itself to be friendly towards women. So if you have a woman who's at the top of her game saying she's not going to help another woman because of the way she's dressed, to me, all that does is push us further down. And it's very cultural. There is this mentality that there can only be one. And she upholds that in so many ways. And here's the thing, though. I find myself in between this role of should I be compassionate towards her or should I just let her have it? Because clearly something's not right here. And I've struggled with both because I know her. I've worked with her. These comments aren't shocking to me. They're shocking to people. And now all of a sudden, she wants to talk about it in a way in which she thinks that she has taken the moral high ground. And quite frankly, all she's done is separated herself and put a division between women in a business that already puts a division between us. It makes it hard for us to get along because we feel as if we have to compete. And then last but not least, we have so many, like myself. Like I said earlier, I really did look up to her. There was a point in time where I thought, this is it. She's the pinnacle. She's made it. And she's so anti everything that we stand for if we want to try to make it in this business.
The suit also said ESPN took its actions based on inaccurate third-party accounts of Steele's comments and that the network did not immediately review the actual comments or the context in which they were made. The Wall Street Journal added the likely talking point to drive this lawsuit, a provision in Connecticut law that says it prohibits companies from disciplining employees for exercising their First Amendment rights as long as their statements don't materially interfere with their performance or working relationship with the company. What I do find rather odd is when Jemele Hill was suspended by ESPN and later removed by the network, Steele was quite vocal, saying in part, and I quote, "I think Jemele is a completely different story in that she put that onto herself of her own volition. So why isn't this same energy being matched? Because Sage Steele is a hypocrite.